Alrighty, I'm just talking to you off the cuff. I've been looking at the dynamic or the situation between Boyce and Yvette. The honeymoon is over. I already did my commentary a while back on, the debate that they had. I said that I think Yvette won that debate specifically because I don't think Boyce is that good at debate, and there were points that he just didn't make that he should have in that conversation. I mean, their philosophy are two different things. I think that in reality, you can walk and chew gum at the same time. It's not an and/or situation. I think there's critiques of both of them. I never looked at Boyce's commentaries or his kids can be a millionaire and all that stuff as little. I thought that was a lot more, I guess, to encourage you or whatever, or, stuff like that. I didn't take that as guaranteed. I think I agree with him that black folks need to have their own space and their own lane and do their own thing, and there's just things that the government can do, but there's a lot of things that they can't do, and a lot of things historically they have never done. And that's, direct me to a time in history where government ever took a group of people out of poverty by taking resources from other people, redistributing the wealth. Those things don't happen without wars. But I do agree with you that government does matter simply when it comes to government contracts, things of that nature. I live in New York, and Governor Cuomo has this bitch ass, crony capitalist thing going on where he's giving other businesses from other countries even, and states to come here, tax-free 10 years, all types of stuff like that. And it's like, well, then what about people who've been here for years already, and why can't they get that same tax rate? But one of the things, we got this Solyndra-like companies. Elon Musk actually bought it. That helped. But it's like a solar panel. And by the way, if you're a young dude and you live in the West Coast or even the Midwest, I think, as much as I think it's not worth it yet, solar is the future. So I know you can probably go to a community college and get you can get your a 2-year degree learning how to install a solar panel. So I'm saying that's just something that a market that black people need to get into, or at least young black men, is an option, because that's gonna be the future regardless. It is what it is. We gotta adapt with the changes. But and that's an interesting example too. Is with all this innovation, all this new technology, there's gonna be less workers, right? So how are we gonna take resources from the government and get them to redistribute it directly to black people with no tax base to do that, right? If you got automated cars and you got automated truckers and those industries are killed, where's the tax revenue going to come? Because those people aren't working and those people aren't paying taxes either. In most policies and most redistribution, it doesn't come from the top down, it comes from the bottom up. That's just something to think about. But beyond their debate between their views, Yvette made some personal attacks. I think it was corny when she said, acted like, I didn't say nothing about him and I didn't say his name. Yvette has always played this passive-aggressive thing with Boyce where, she'll sneak diss him, or then she'll say, oh, he's a good guy, yada yada, but she's always done that. But in that particular video, her co-host did say Boyce's name because apparently he was upset about being invited to speak at the engagement without getting paid. He wants them to pay him, but then Yvette, she talked about how, I wasn't gonna say nothing. I wasn't gonna say his name until he mentioned mine or whatever. He responded to our video. But I'm like, you named your video something about financial literacy is fake or it's not real. Everybody knows you were taking shots at Boyce. That's not, stop it. You sneak this the hell out that man, and you've been doing that. But just looking back, because I see a lot of different people responding to this but I think it's cool to debate and argue, but it's not cool to just keep having the same one. Yvette Cornell has her philosophy, and that's just what it is. I give her tone talks and all the respect for actually calling out the elite leftists and black bourgeoisie and stuff like that. But at the same time, they operate in a little level of arrogance themselves. Tone talks and Yvette Cornell. I watched how they spoke about Charlemagne the Devil's Book. I'm not calling that man a god. And He talked about how he, he's not an economist. He's a fucking radio disc jockey. Like he's a, an instigator. Like that's what his job is. He gave a book, which he said himself was about his own personal experience, and it was more of a, some black pride type of thing. And yet they're making arguments that didn't make. And one of the problems that bothered me with that was Yvette. She does not like personal attacks. She does not like the light skin colorism thing that she gets attacked with. I just watched a recent video with Monique, and she was talking about how, and Monique made the point that, she was given the eschatology of Hollywood for black women, and how Hattie McDaniel was a fat black woman and the man-me character, and they got rid of that real quick, but then they gave us this whole, they replaced all the women with like lighter skinned or biracial women in Hollywood and promoted them instead in a more positive light. And you better know quickly, her pivot game is strong, Her pivot game is real strong. I don't want to talk about that. I'm a light-skinned girl that like you, so we all in this together. And like, but you kind of undermining her point is that does happen in Hollywood, right? That is Yvette has admitted she feels that she might have a little bit of light girl privilege, whatever, but she quickly pivoted away from that conversation. But I'm saying Yvette does not like to be attacked personally. Her block game is quick. So for them to say, can't Charlamagne even read, even though if you watch the show or listen to the radio show, his mom's an English teacher. She had him in some program for books. He said he actually did read. Then Tone talks with his level of, retarded arrogance. Charlamagne, you're going to debate me, but if you debate me first, you got to come with my facts first and read them. And then he had a list of books that he wants Charlamagne to read. And if you, in one of Charlamagne's book sessions, that book was on Charlamagne's books he read. So I'm saying, like, there's a lot of weirdo witness with, Yvette Cornell, Tone Talks, and the arguments that they make. They make just weird arguments to me that I think the reality is that I'm going to do a video about incentives and how a lot of people don't offer any incentives in any way, shape, or form. But I get their whole philosophy. I get their, when you listen to their videos and you listen to what they say, you got to frame it, right? They have their own talking points and things, and if you don't come with those things, they're really going to be dismissive of you. Like that. So it's really no different than the black bourgeoisie class that they expose, in my opinion. I'm seeing similarities. But the reality is, again, I never looked at Boyce stuff as literal. I always took it as like, encouragement. He did post something that as much as I felt that way, it kind of did feel like a shot when he said, Jackie Robinson, I'm sorry, no disrespect, but I would have been fine staying in the Negro League. And I'm like, that's the same argument that, again, that's like we're saying what I would do, but you're not him. He did what he wanted to do for himself. Like, to me, like, hop off, right? People say the same thing about, I was watching the debate about KD and how people are going in on what he did and how he moved. He made a business move. He did something best for him. People talking about loyalty and all other nonsense that doesn't exist in business or in competition. But people don't respect it. But so what? He did what he had to do for himself. A good movie to watch, actually, a TV show. I didn't finish it. I only watched like 3 episodes. Was The Knicks, and how it's about the doctor who's like a heart surgeon or whatever. And it showed you all the racism and the stuff he had to deal with. But the reality is, if he wanted to get to the next level, if he wanted to learn, which is what doctors do, they constantly are in the hospital practicing, learning, studying, perfect their craft. If he would have stayed where he was at in the black space, he would have never become what he became. He never would have had the resources or access to do the things he did. So, I understood what Boyce was saying, but in some cases, like, we don't have the tools, and if we don't have the tools, we got to go where they are. And that's the prime example of that. And it shows you the dynamic of how black folks was not messing with the Duke brother from the show when he started to work at the White Hospital and all this other stuff, and he got accused of, the same things we do, because we have no power. All we can do is call people coons and whatnot. But anyways, back to the Yvette Cornell thing. The one thing I said since day one, when I even covered Boyce's and Yvette's first debate, I'll link that. I said I think she won, not because I agree with what she's saying or her argument. It's just that she articulated her points better. I just think Boyce didn't make valid points, and he didn't. There's things he just missed. like one example, one of the arguments Boyce is talking about the spending power thing, and Yvette made a good counter argument. Like that's not wealth, and like yeah, that's true. No group measures how much money wealth they have by how much they spend. In fact, wealth is accumulated after all your liabilities and debts are accounted for. That's what wealth is. But I'm like, the reality is we can look at what we spend our money on, as the data tells us, and that shows us where our priorities are. I'm not saying that changing spending habits would bring us to where white folks are at. And I guess that's one of the things that Boyce, I agree with, is like, well, first of all, Asians are the standard, right? They're the ones who have all the resources. So shouldn't they be the standard of how much we measure ourselves by, being that they're only 8% of the population and we're 13, supposedly? And if that's true, then like, shouldn't they be the mark, not white folks? I don't get that argument, but I get it. I understand the history and how that works, but that would be the mark. But Yvette constantly talks about, the gap and the wealth and stuff like that. And I'm like, and what I don't agree with her or her people or her ilk is that black folks can't do anything about it, or there's nothing we can do to change our situation. To get to their level, no. We're 280 years or 250 years behind them, according to the article. Latinas and stuff, Hispanics or whatever, they're only 80 years behind them. So it's like, I can't say, well, what are they doing differently than us that they're only 80 years behind, so we could chop some of these years away. I don't know about that. But I do say, again, no one measures their spending power by how much, their wealth by how much they spend, but when you look at what we spend money on, it shows us where our priorities are. It's just that simple. I don't even think it's an and/or debate either between them two anymore. It's like, when you look at Black Wall Street, which Yvette Cornell acknowledged, says that we tried it, it worked, and then it got shut down. One thing I hate about when people tell the Black Wall Street story, and I haven't watched Dr. Boyce's movie yet, Black Wall Street yet, but I hate that even when especially when white liberals spin it, they never tell the whole story. Black Wall Street got destroyed, right? The terrorist attack, all bad things happened, but it was rebuilt. It was rebuilt within 5 years. 5 years, Black Wall Street was rebuilt. It was 20, and then it flourished for another 20 years after it got rebuilt. But no one really talks about that. Integration did more damage to Black Wall Street than the terrorist attack did. Civil rights legislation and integration legislation changed the nepotism, the ownership philosophy of black folks. We thought their ice was colder, and we just abandoned supporting each other in our businesses. Like, that's something we don't talk about. And I guess maybe your Cornell sees that. She sees that black folks is just not going to invest in black people or support black people. She'd rather you just go give your money to white folks anyways. I don't know. But that's something that's not talked about when it comes to, because she'll point out, like, yeah, we did it, but it got destroyed, and the government was complicit. But she wants the same government that was complicit in destroying Black Wall Street to take resources from other white folks and give it to black people. And again, show me where in history has that ever happened without wars. Because that's the only way it can happen. But another part I want to talk about, despite their disputes, because we've already, again, like, it's cool to debate and argue, but let's just not keep having the same ones. They have different philosophies. I think most smart people will eat the meat from both of them and apply it to their own individual lives and go from there. And that's that. Like, it ain't really that deep. But one thing I want to talk about besides their beef is this idea of black men and black women working together on YouTube and social media or in business and whatever. Boyce has been a very advocate of, black women in leadership and black men giving platforms to black women, and he's the Dr. Boyce Watkins, as some of us like to call him sometimes. He goes overboard, in my opinion, in that area. But here you have a situation, to me, that's very similar to what happened with Zaza Ali and Professor Griff. Professor Griff stated that he put Zaza on. Zaza admitted that. He introduced her to, I guess, that whole space of black consciousness, I guess. He brought her on in that world, despite a lot of people saying, bro, we don't trust her. He lost a lot of relationships with other black men in that space by bringing her on and putting her on his platform. And then we saw what happened with that. She jumped ship and went over to Boyce Watkins. And now you see the same thing happening with Yvette Cornell. She's, she made accusations about Boyce, the pay and the money. Some of the same arguments that Zaza made, and not getting paid what she thought she deserved. But I'm like, that's partly your problem, right? Like, if you can't live on XY dollars amount, that's on you. Like, who the fuck stays at a job that's not paying them enough to feed themselves? Like, that's a personal problem. But you took those L's. You said you were going to be loyal. I mean, you better person to me. If I can't pay my bills next month, I'm not sticking around too long. Or I'm going to hustle and do something else to supplement what I'm not getting here. But she claims that. She claims that there are money problems. But I'm looking at this whole thing like from the outside, like damn, like you got somebody like Boyce who's very egalitarian when it comes to women and power and giving them platforms and all this other stuff. As I said before, what's her name? As I stated in one video, of course black men are supposed to build platforms for their women, but in the same video said she's not subscribed to any type of male leadership or patriarchy. And then you have a situation where a man did help her build her up and all that, then she bounced and went to another patriarchy-esque or matriarchal type guy, Boyce. The situations are very similar. And you see a lot of these, and I'm not blaming black women, but a lot of these YouTube beefs between black men, a lot of them happen quite skipped over women, in a sense. Again, Professor Griff said he lost a lot of male relationships because of Zaza and bring her on. And Boyce, not just Yvette, but he almost had problems with Tariq over Yvette. The Nation of Islam was going to come at. I mean, Boyce, he played his space. He played like, I'm not going to get in between these two. But the Nation of Islam, that's not somebody you really group of people you want to mess with. But she's popped off at Farrakhan, and Boyce had to get in between that. The beef between Umar Johnson and Boyce was over Maria Lloyd, and his lack of a school, and she called him, but it was on his channel. And I think Umar's response was kind of moist because I know it's probably hard to understand. You see that it's Boyce's channel, but he is open to a lot of different people, which again, I respect that part of Boyce's channel. It's like, it's a space where you got different philosophies, different worldviews and all that. Black people claim we don't want to be monolithic, but we operate in this bullshit as groupthink. And when we don't agree with other people, we sit there and we call them coons and this and that, and all these other terms that are corny and for people who are powerless, because like real power does not sit around doing that. Like, that's just childish to me. But I like the idea of this platform because you have that. Even if I disagree with people, I still get to eat and go move on and see that we don't all think the same way. But I didn't understand how he would put somebody like Yvette on his channel who fundamentally does not agree with him. Like, it's like you gotta weigh out the options. Like, yeah, we agree on this, this, and that. Yeah, they both called out Obama administration and a lot of these neoliberals and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, cool. But when you're fundamentally teaching something and she's like your number two and she doesn't believe what you believe and she teaches something different, eventually y'all gonna clash, and that seems to what happened. And you invested, again, she's saying she helped him build his platform. He's saying he put her on. I don't know which is which. She's doing her own thing now, so see what happens with that. But what you could definitely see too, because I slowly saw her less and less on his channel and doing more and more on her channel, especially the bigger interviews. But I guess that's my question, is like, what does this do for the dynamic between black men and black women? There was this like organic thing a couple years ago where you started seeing more black male YouTubers trying to reach out and do more videos with black women in a safe, I guess to try to combat the gender war stuff, or just get a different perspective, because we understand that men and women, we think differently and we process information differently. So it's good to have, I guess that yin and yang, that balance. A lot of dudes' platforms change to be more incorporated about that, but a lot of these situations cause a lot of drama too between other black men. Again, like if you look at half the beefs that Tommy Sotomayor was in with other black men, a lot of them were over women. The beef between him and Dan Freeman and Tommy, and initially that was over Kernel of Wisdom, something she said. Again, then there's Boyce with Umar Johnson, and the beef between Roland Martin and And Tariq Nasheed, that was because over a female, right? So it's like, as much as we want to incorporate women and give balance on other stuff, I'm just saying, looking at these two examples of Boyce and Yvette and Professor Griff and Zaza, even in the conscious space, it doesn't look like we have a good track record with black men and black women working together in social media. And for, either, to build something with somebody and put somebody on and vouch for them, even at the expense of other relationships, which again, I think like Umar's response to Boyce was moist as hell, being that he should have came at Maria Lloyd, not Boyce. Like, that was between her and him, and even Tariq warned Boyce about Yvette. He told her, like, you'll watch out for her. And the same way, I think, I don't know his name, one of those conscious dudes, Sinetta, warned Professor Griff, I guess, about Zaza. So it's like, damn, it's not a good look. That's just my take on it. I wonder, what does that do for black male, black female relationships? I wonder, what does that do for when Boyce is trying to chastise other black men about giving black women positions of power and things like that, but then like he look at his own house, it don't look too good as far as that, and we see all the drama and all the stuff that comes along with a lot of the women that are in his space. I don't know, man. Like, I was just watching Alex Artwork. He posted something about this little picture that's going around with the dude being old and the chick being young, and he analogized the woman as a car, right? And half the comments from black women are, oh my God, this is disrespectful, blah, 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 it's a woman. I'm like, it's guy talk. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, I'm saying, stuff like that, I can't work with. I can't. You go to Nick Pitt, like I said before I did the video, we get accused of policing black women, but they police us. They won't tell us how to talk. They won't tell us what we can fantasize about, fetishize, whatever. It's just weird. And I'm saying, those images, those dialogues, and the pettiness of the arguments that women are making, whether it's niggas need to stop saying female, like stuff like that. It's like, are we really doing that? Like, because I'm saying the optics of that is not gonna make more black men want to work with you. That's just my take on it. But what do you think? What does this do for black male relationships in YouTube? What does this do for Black Boyce's argument of giving women platforms and building with them and giving them leadership? How does it look when you have two prominent females who came up with or under another man and they've all jumped ship to go do their own thing or join another group of people? What does that look like? What does that say about black relationships and this whole gender war thing that's on the internet? What say you? Oh yeah, real quick. One of the points that I didn't continue on was the point about how we have this thing in New York. It's like $1 billion deal with giving different companies from out of the state a lower tax rate, things of that nature, and that caused controversy. There's supposed to be rules where you can't go into the same industry of people who've already been here or be on the same block, whatever. But with this whole, and I went to an interview there just to check it out, see what it was about, what they're offering and all that, and it sounds good and all that, but again, it's been 3 years in the making, cost the taxpayers about $1 billion, and there's still no solar panels being produced yet. But one of the issues was, like, despite all the other, problems, it's crony capitalism, it's the government picking winners and losers and all that stuff again. And so it's not true competition, it's not true capitalism. But they told us that first it was like the production stopped for a minute, then they got back on. The people who were doing the construction, they were like, yo, we haven't gotten paid, so we're not gonna finish the job. Elon Musk bought the company, so that helped out a lot. But one of the biggest issues is like, so you have, liberal New York, all about diversity and stuff like that. You have a lot of unions and things of that nature, But one of the complaints also was that there were no black construction workers out there. So again, when I agree with Yvette in that sense that that's something that the government can do, right? You have a black construction company or even black workers, right? If you're using taxpayer dollars to build the industry and pick winners and losers, the people who are working on these projects should be diverse. It's just that simple. But that was one of the complaints, that there were no black people in those positions or working there, and I don't think they ended up getting any. But I'm saying, like, that's in a government run situation in New York, that still happened, right? Black folks still did not have access to that policy. Now, if you look at what's going on, I think in Detroit, or Flint rather, a black construction company got the contract to fix the water pipes. So it's like you see hand in hand. You see the government, because they're the only ones who can have the resources. The veteran says that the private sector can't fix it. That's something only government can do. Absolutely, the government responsibility is to protect their citizens first. And what happened in Flint was an example of the government failure to protect the citizens. But you also needed that black construction company to come in and bid for the position and get that, that contract. So it's like you want black people to have government contracts, but black people have to have businesses in the first place to get those government contracts, right? But that's just one point I was making. Like, with these economic times and things that are going like that, I don't see what she's asking for to come, especially when black folks don't really have any more political capital, especially when a lot of black folks love being mascots for other groups, even if it hurts their own interest to further theirs. Like, I've never been the one to say politics doesn't matter, but I'm just realistic on how much politics can actually do. Just like I can acknowledge how much actual owning business can actually really do, and what that looks like.